it be confusing for what to look for when we're looking for practitioners to support kids with ADHD and sensory processing challenges and how to tease that all apart? On ADHD, What Now? Today we are welcoming Carol Kranowitz, the author of Out of Sync Child. And she is such a wealth of knowledge and she makes it simple. So I can't wait to share her expertise with you. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Veronica Hunter. I am the founder of ADHD What Now, mom to neurodiverse kids. And now I help parents with their next steps and selecting their next steps to supporting their unique children and family. One of those things, of course, is understanding sensory processing and practitioners that can help with that. So let's dive in. My own story, if it's okay, with sensory processing, I was a parent with a child with ADHD and I was looking for what is going on, and I was Googling what is ADHD or sensory processing, trying to figure it out. And I have to say, like, I didn't know to find your book, so I'm glad to be sharing it because it's like a fantastic resource. And one of the first conversations I had with somebody about it was in school at the IEP type of table, having conversations around special education. And the comment there was that the school doesn't recognize sensory processing as a thing. Like they think it's a thing, but that the state guidelines and rules, like they don't offer occupational therapy support if you have a diagnosis of sensory processing disorder. What do you find is people's current level of understanding around sensory processing? Is this something that even now we still need greater awareness around?
Yes, we do need greater awareness, and there's incremental understanding about it. I'm so pleased when I hear that a parent took a child to a pediatrician and he had actually heard of it. Sensory processing challenges, some of them are in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition. And this is what pediatricians go to figure out how to analyze a child's behavior. So over responsivity, that little child I just mentioned with the aversion to the T-shirt tag and the sandbox, that over responsivity is mentioned in the DSM, but there are other parts of sensory processing that are not mentioned, and therefore they don't exist in the minds of people who only believe the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Occupational therapists are the go-to therapists for children who have issues with managing the sensations that they receive from the environment and from their own bodies. And they want to do treatment for the children, but it's difficult. OTs are not allowed to make a diagnosis. A medical doctor must make a diagnosis. And if the medical doctor doesn't know to say to the parent, take the child for an evaluation by an occupational therapist, then we're stuck with something that looks like SPD, which is usually ADHD. I think every doctor is taught this. When you hear hoofbeats, look for horses, not zebras. And I don't know, Veronica, if you've ever heard that, but okay. So in other words, look for the obvious thing. Don't go looking for something really esoteric. A mom comes in, the child presents as being overactive, constantly on the go, impulsive, inattentive, and the doctor says, sounds like horses' hoofbeats, this must be ADHD. Sensory processing differences, however, are the zebra. You don't think of them, especially if you have not been taught them in your graduate school of education where you get your master's in education. It's not taught in medical school because there's no medicine for it. So, we have professionals working with kids who are beautifully attuned to kids and well motivated and and intelligent people, but they're ignorant about this particular but common neurological problem. That's
That's a great description of, yeah, exactly. What I experienced in the world too is that it took a lot of digging. So I felt like digging to understand what was going on for my kiddo. In fact, I might even say, I remember because you're talking about going to the pediatrician's office. I don't even know, and going to the pediatrician's office, I didn't even know to present some of the things that you just described to the pediatrician, or to even have a conversation with that. I would wonder, or I made observations like if a blender was on, he'd run away screaming, and participating in music, didn't participate in music, stop singing. I hate that. And then I have multiple children, so that created all of this conflict, right? The one child wants to sing and the other child saying, stop that, it's driving me crazy. Or relationship in space, right? Like he was always touching too much, like leaning in too much, too close. And so the all of these things that you're describing as you were talking about them too, it's the implications are vast, because there's all of the social dynamic and emotional health that can go along with the sensory processing is not understood for what it is. Going back to going to my pediatrician and not mentioning it, all they said is, you have, eventually, it took until 4 or 5 years old, and the pediatrician looked at me and said, you have one of the most challenging children that I have.
Oh.
I have. And I was like, this is the first time you're telling me this. So like, it would have been helpful to know, like, oh my gosh, I should be aware of something and what to look for. But yeah, so I'm so glad that you're here and sharing that message and what could be going on, because the implication for families is significant.
I'll sell my book for a minute. If you go to my book, there are lots and lots of lists in here of characteristics of children who have challenges in the different systems. And
Yeah.
if you go through these lists and check them, readers also have permission to copy those and hand the lists over to teachers and doctors who don't have time to read a book, but might appreciate a list, and get the dialogue started. I'm hoping that next week we're going to get all teachers, all medical professionals, all soccer coaches and bus drivers to understand that these are physical developmental issues. This is not, a child does not wake up in the morning and say, how am I going to confound all the grown-ups in my life? And how am I going to make people think I'm lazy, stupid, and mean? When a kid mishears what the teacher or the parent says, and you think the child is rude, he's not paying attention, he's got ADHD, he's not with a program. No, it's because of auditory discrimination problems, visual discrimination problems. That can be the child who needs to copy an assignment down from the board, and he reverses letters. So he writes B instead of D, or he writes 6 instead of 9, and he gets the assignment wrong. And that can happen a lot with reading too, that children are reading and they're misreading the words. It's not dyslexia. It's different. It's different from that.
Mm-hmm. I know for us, we took my son for vision therapy. And one of the things that they worked on, I think, was visual discrimination, in the sense that, this is the way I describe it now, is when he was looking at the book and to read, it's like he saw everything on the page all at once. And so he would only get so far on the words here and then be looking at the picture over here. And so he couldn't read the entire thing. So as a result, his reading scores were below grade level. And some of the work that the vision therapist helped to do was to help tune out that extraneous information so that he could read the words. And so as a result, his reading level went up to above grade level in the span of 6 months, I think largely with the assistance for the sensory processing.
That's an excellent example. And something simple like a cardboard with a slit in it. And that slit will show the line that the child is reading, and he can move the cardboard down the page. That kind of thing is very helpful. And vision therapy is fabulous. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because occupational therapy using sensory integration techniques is the go-to therapy for kids with SPD. And along with it, vision therapy is fabulous. When they're done in tandem, it's especially effective. That's because the vestibular and the visual and the auditory also, those systems are all entwined in the cranial nerves and the apparatus in the brain. When we see and move smoothly, we're getting input through those two sensory systems that help the other. The more we move, the better we see. The more we see, the more smoothly we move. And they feed each other so tightly. So that therapy for both of those systems must have been exciting for you and your family to see the improvements.
Yeah, I think that's part of the why behind what I do, in the sense that I think of where we were a few years ago and where we've come after getting help from the various people that we've gotten help with. And our experience now is vastly different. And I think it is largely from the professionals such as occupational therapists, vision therapists that have helped. And so one is to increase awareness of what is out there and the fact that something can be helped, because like you were describing before, the child who is perhaps hearing something different. So in their reality and their experience, they are responding to the world in an appropriate way because they heard fruit instead of flute. Yes. And if that happens all day long, and then if you can take the chance to step into that person's shoes, and of course they're upset, and of course they're resistant, and all of that makes complete sense, because they did something that seemed appropriate, and instead they got reprimanded or punished in some way, shape, or form. It's sad and it's unfortunate, and it shouldn't have to happen these days,
No.
right?
And imagine a child's intentions are good, and his motivation is there, and he wants to learn, and he wants to please his grown-ups, and they're scolding him all the time. I find myself getting excited in this conversation. This is my favorite topic. I'm so passionate about wanting parents, first of all, to realize they are great parents. You're all great parents. I mean, if you're listening to this, that proves it. You care so much, and you want to understand. You are doing everything right, or, well, 95% everything right. and you're dealing with a child who is out of sync because of a neurological problem. It's not anybody's fault. And there are things to help and make it smoother. So I hope that when you go to the pediatrician, you will be informed, and you will say, don't tell me, doctor, that it's going to go away. Doctor, don't tell me it's ADHD, because I know my kid has beautiful attention when the tag in his shirt is not bothering him. ADD does not fit. It's something else. And let's all work together and educate the world so that our kids can grow up and be comfortable, competent, confident, fabulous people.
Thank you, Carol. That is amazing. And I know that Carol is such an expert in sensory processing and being able to understand it and explain it in an easily accessible way. So absolutely, I would recommend, if you want to go more into sensory processing, check out her webpage, outofsyncchild.com, which is also linked down below, or the book Out of Sync Child. Also, if you are interested in more about understanding your child and picking any next steps, go to whatnowadhd.com, and I will see you there and be cheering you on.